Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Diplomatic Enclave. I am your host Khalid Bhatt. We in this day and in this age, especially in Pakistan and other countries, talk about 2 or 3 topics a lot: conflict resolution, interfaith cooperation, interfaith harmony, and in Pakistan also, as we've initiated this whole era of tourism. Religious tourism is also one of the kinds of tourism that Pakistan's government is trying to promote. Our guest in this very episode of Diplomatic Enclave is somebody who's a very special personality. He is a Buddhist monk. He has command over 16 languages. He has multiple diplomas to his credit, and he is somebody who at the age of 6 knew what he wanted to do with his life, that is become a monk and work for humanity in general and also for conflict resolution. It's very important to talk about topics such as these in our program, because this is how also nations get together. The different conflicts, the different issues that different nations have amongst each other get resolved. To talk about that and more, we've been joined by Reverend Dr. Sir Sumana. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Sir, when I was going through your CV and I was trying to understand where you come from, there was a lot of things that I thought was extremely impressive for somebody of your age. As you say, you're just 60 years young.
66.
66 years young. But in this whole 66 years, you have done things that maybe a person like myself couldn't have done at till the age of 100. I mean, you were born in Malacca to Singaporean parents of Sri Lankan origin. You were raised, educated in Singapore. Your father was a goldsmith. Your mother was a teacher. And at 6 years of age, you started to study Buddhism. And at 11 years of age, you knew that you wanted to become a monk. How and when did this realization came to you that it was to become a monk that was your destiny?
At that time, as a young boy in Singapore, growing, a country which was in transition to become a free trade country as such and to become a full-fledged democracy, my father and Lee Kuan Yew's father, the founder of modern Singapore, they were colleagues. So we had always thought about our duty to the country. So I thought I'll come back to serve Singapore and other countries as well by being a Buddhist monk to preach the real Dharma.
But you know, at the age of 11, one doesn't exactly know what one wants to do with one's life, but you knew what you wanted to do exactly. Your mother, who was a school principal at that time, was taken by disbelief, and she asked, really, what's wrong with you? I mean, at the age of 11, not many children know what they want to do with their life.
Excuse me, I was beyond my time always. Not only at that time, even later on.
All right.
I was always beyond my time. So I was not the ordinary child. So I had that kind of vision. Despite the biological age of 11, I became a monk, and as you understand, that I could give a speech in 1 hour on Buddhism the night that I was a young monk.
Exactly at the age of 11, you were the first boy in the history of Singapore to be ordained at a temple, and at the same night you gave a sermon of 1 hour's duration. How does it come to you, sir? How does it come to you so naturally?
It doesn't come just from this life. So there's a connection somewhere, and with that interest and a little bit of reading and training, we managed to do that.
All right. You, of course, continued and you went to study in the Buddhist seminary in Colombo between 65 and 70. From there, you studied science in the Sunetra Mahadevi University College in Colombo. There you obtained a diploma in Buddhist studies from the University of Kelaniya, and also an honors degree in Buddhist and Western philosophy. Were these topics such that interested you?
That's why I chose myself. These topics were not given, were not compulsory. I chose what I want at that age.
All right.
Even in my classes, I was always the first for 21 years, and I knew what I want to do.
All right.
So my aim remained the same.
All right.
So I chose different types of understanding, like Greek, Roman culture for the Western world, and not only Buddhism, but going further. Western philosophy and Buddhist philosophy.
When one talks of Buddhist philosophy, what are the main ingredients of this philosophy?
The main ingredients of this philosophy is, as Radhakrishnan said, the Buddha is the ars rationalis, to always be reasonable and rational and logical in your conclusions, not to believe simply because it was told by somebody or simply because it was in a book.
All right. Well, you study that, you become, of course, a master at that by the year 1979, and then you go and study law at the London University.
Yes.
Why study law after having studied philosophy?
Because I've seen the injustices in South Asian countries that were inflicted on the citizens. And my duty as a Buddhist monk, compassion and loving kindness, compelled me for the mechanics and dynamics of compassion to get into study law, especially human rights and criminology.
This compassion, is it ingrained? Does it come from within yourself, or do you have to develop it?
To some extent, we have all this in us. It's inherent in any human being. And also, we can develop that to a higher level.
How does one develop it to a higher level?
By first loving oneself. If you don't love yourself, you simply love others, it becomes disastrous.
All right. So you need to love yourself first and then go to the other person. And until you don't appreciate who you are, you cannot appreciate the others.
So it's like if you don't have money, you cannot give money to others. Put it in a different way. He who loves himself does not hate another.
All right. This is one of the basic philosophies.
Yes, yes. Which leads to that conflict resolution theme as well.
After having studied law at the London University, you go and you do a postgraduate study in Christian theology at the Oxford University of all
But at the
places.
same time in London, when I was studying in London, the weekends, evening classes, I was studying medicine already.
Homeopathic medicine.
Yes, that's right, in London.
Why study homeopathic medicine? Why
Because
not go for the normal medicine?
Normal medicine is good for normal people.
All right.
People who are not normal, they need extra type of medicine. So we went to the alternative system because the founder of homeopathy found problems in the normal medicine. And he was also one of those normal medical doctors. He and 200 of his followers in Germany, they one day said, okay, we give up this.
Schwabe?
Yeah.
Was it Schwabe? Was it
His
somebody?
name?
His name.
No, his name was Samuel Hahnemann.
All right.
Yeah, he's the founder of homeopathic medicine.
All right. Because there are a lot of medicines, of homeopathic medicines by Dr. Schwabe that are available here in Pakistan as well. And there are other homeopathic medicines as well. What is the basic principle of homeopathy?
Homeopathic means like cures like. That means if you have a similar kind of disease, when you are not sick and well, if you take certain things and you have that disease, which comes from that, that is your medicine.
All right.
Likes cures like.
All right. So what does homeopathy cure? Does homeopathy cure the disease or does it cure the symptoms?
It cures the entire person. It doesn't just go to the symptoms only. It's not just a remedy, just a medicine as such.
All right.
It looks from a holistic point of view. And mind symptoms, mental symptoms are different in homeopathy, unlike in allopathy.
All right. So speaking of homeopathic medicine, you become a doctor in homeopathic medicine at the same time that you're studying Christian theology at the Oxford University. You also obtain medical research. I mean, you do your medical research at the British Institute of Homeopathy that awards you a doctorate in homeopathic medicine.
Yes,
then you're a licensed doctor of naturopathy from the American Naturopathy Association. What is the difference between naturopathy and homeopathy?
Like homeopathy, naturopathy is also a system which is found in Germany. Both these are founded in Germany. So those who dislike the Germans, they totally dislike this. There's a prejudices in the medical world.
Really?
Yes, about many medical associations. They are also tied down by certain forces like multinational companies. And in the making of medicine and all that.
All right.
Yes.
So how does naturopathy cure one person as opposed to homeopathy?
It is like incorporated, because when I gave my book for the thesis for homeopathy, the Naturopathic Association also gave me a doctorate.
All right.
Yes.
All right. You're also a fellow of the British Institute and you are now recognized as a medical scientist. Now, how would one differentiate one, between a medical doctor, a homeopathic doctor, and a medical scientist? I mean, is it an extension of
Yes,
your doctorate?
Because if you are just doing a practice and healing persons, you are just a physician or a doctor. But then I went into the field of genetics and gave a paper in the United Nations organizations in Geneva in 1976 and created a new theory into the field of genetics.
Oh, what was that new theory, sir? Tell us a little bit about that.
You see, it's about the genes. I wrote about the whole story of the genes from the beginning until the present moment. At that time, it was genetic engineering was the major issue, and that I found a new theory based on my readings and work and years of contemplation.
So what was it all about? What was the basis of that theory?
Apart from the physical theories that they have founded, we have something that links to quantum physics style of how without the theories physically, from our spirit, that certain changes can happen. Because 60% of ourselves is what we are nurtured into. So in that process, a new kind of genes can be created.
Nurtured as in by the environment or by
Yes, by environment, by education. That is why the same family is born in one country, they migrate to another, they start changing. And you see new things, new diseases also. Like Thessalonia among the Jew community, because they were always in very small groups, crowded places.
So thalassemia was very prevalent in the Jewish community because of that.
Yes.
All right. So did you research on certain kind of diseases that are prevalent in small communities as well?
Yes, because wherever we go, we read, we talk to people, and we get a lot of information. This is an ongoing thing.
All right. And your study is also something that is ongoing. You are continuously renewing yourself as far as a scientist, as far as a doctor. I mean, you're so much more than that. You're not only a I mean, it is amazing the work that you've done in this small amount of time, 66 years. I think you haven't lost one day since the age of 6 to study or to learn or to understand or to become a better person, have you?
I owe my gratitude to Singapore because I'm a Singapore product. So that's the ethics we work in. I work 18 hours a day, and I've not slept before 2 o'clock in the morning for 50 years.
How do you do that? Because normally a sleep cycle, isn't that sleep cycle supposed to be between 6 and 8 hours? Or is it very special for you that your sleep cycle is 4 hours per day?
You see, this 8 hours, 6 hours, these are technical way of looking at it.
All right.
But for persons who go a little beyond and who have that energy and who can enjoy their work, it's not a problem. They find their time to rest.
And you still are energetic after so many years, so many decades of only sleeping 4 hours a day.
5.5 hours a day. Yes, 5.5
All right.
hours a day.
All right.
Yes.
How important is time management for you?
How?
Important is time management.
It's so important because we are always punctual in our system. In Singapore, in England, we are so used to it. And we use everything I write down one day before that I need to do so that I don't miss anything. And I check in the night again before I sleep.
All right. There was one very interesting aspect about your personality. You created a world record for being the first to walk the entire Great Wall of China between the years 2000 and 2001. And at the same time, you were also managing a 3 years postgraduate in Christian theology from the Oxford University. How did you do that?
You see, every time the reflection is what I'm studying at that time. So the study is not just reading the books. Reflection, rereading, and writing notes. And I carried on with that. I had 1 or 2 small books with me. We had to carry so many things because everything was on our shoulders. And I thought I could finish by 6 months because I've seen the wall 32 years ago. And I thought it's much easier. But it was not like that. But because I knew Chinese, it's my second language, being a Singapore person, I could manage to walk. And we managed to get through where we want to go.
You also know 3 different Chinese dialects,
Yes,
don't you?
that's right. I speak Fujian, which is called Hokkien, just fluently like one of those. The people who don't see my face, they think I'm a real Chinese.
Oh.
So we are serious in what we study, in how we pronounce the words. The same I would say of Indian languages. Of course, Sanskrit made a great impact in me, that I could absorb many languages from my childhood and establish myself as a linguist.
How did you establish, I mean, how do you learn a language so easily? I mean, even the persons that I have talked in my career haven't been able to talk more than in 5 or 6 languages, but you speak around 10 languages, you understand 16 different languages. How do you do that?
If you love people more and accept their cultures more, you'll be able to speak their language.
All right.
This is the basis.
How long does it take for one to learn a language?
Depends on your interests.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So it could take what, a month, 6
Yes,
months?
for some, yeah, just to speak.
All right.
Yeah, then the grammar is a little bit different. Yes.
All right. You're also a human rights
person.
champion, a human rights person, let's put it that way. You've been a Malaysian opposition activist for around
36 years,
36 years. And you are the only non-Chinese person to have been awarded by the Malaysian government. For all the work that you have rendered.
Knighthood, yeah.
Of course,
Sir
the knighthood, the Dato that they call you.
The Sir title.
Exactly, sir. The Dato, of course, means in Malaysian, sir.
Sir, yes.
What work have you done that you are really proud of in all these 35 years?
They have seen my CV and my name was suggested by somebody without my, lobbying at all, because I am in the opposition, and they were asking to give me a small star. Then the government said, how can you give a small star? This person has 3 PhDs. So this is how they gave it.
And 3 PhDs as well. How does one do that? How does it take long for you to finish a doctorate, or were you doing more than one doctorate at the same time?
One doctorate leads to another, and your interest will, because you live in the subject. It's not a written book and it's dead after you write. You still live in that.
All right.
Yes. So aspects of those you have written in the past, you bring back. History is important.
The 3 doctorates that you did,
Yes.
you've written 3 different books.
Yes.
How long did it take you to write those books?
You won't believe if I say one doctorate book I wrote in a week.
Really?
Yes, because my interest was like that. And I had to go back home with the doctorate to have a celebration. And I had to finish all that. So day and night I worked like 18, 19 hours a day and finished it.
And which are the languages that you've written these 3 books in?
They're all written in English.
All right.
Yes. English is my main language. I think in English, even if I speak my mother tongue.
All right.
But when I speak Chinese, I just speak as a Chinese.
All right.
Because it's my culture, Singapore.
You go to different countries. You're here in Pakistan as well. Is this your first visit here?
No. I first came 42 years ago after reading If I Was Assassinated. I was in Bombay at that time. And I felt sad that what would happen. And I thought I want to come to Lahore and look at least at the prison and go back. So that drew me in, because my interest was not just India, subcontinent. For us, it's one country. We are all indivisible people. That should not be divided, that cannot be divided. Even you divide by boundaries, we are still all together. So with that I came, I looked at the Lahore prison, took a photograph, went to the Lahore Museum, visited the Shalimar Gardens, and the same evening went back to Amritsar.
All right. So
Crossed the
42
Wagah
years.
border.
42
years ago. So my interest developed more. And as a student who is interested in current issues, I read this Indian subcontinent, whatever issues are there. Also the Indo-China side, because I belong to ASEAN, Singapore, Malaysia.
All right. So 42 years later, you return to Pakistan. Has anything changed in your point of view in Pakistan in these 42 years?
Oh yes, I think there's tremendous change. Like in between, I came twice, last 2-3 years, and development has taken some toil and things are moving. We read by news things which are sometimes unbelievable. And also we are happy that you have a new agenda now, and we hope for the best to come.
All right. Before we come to Pakistan and talk a little bit about interfaith harmony and conflict resolution, let's talk about the 66 countries that you've gone to, where you've lectured, where you've been to. What are the main topics that you have talked to people in those 66 countries, and what has been the general common interest level by all the people that talk to you there?
My application about religion or philosophy was always the social application. So when I talk to a community, what the community needs, I will relate. And I will relate to the current issues of that time also.
All right.
When it comes to individuals, like those who want to meditate, then that is individual kind of setting that we do different.
All right.
That's
So,
more about transcendence.
so then you teach that
That-
transcendence or that kind of how to achieve nirvana maybe.
And also how to be peaceful here and now. Even if one can't achieve nirvana all of a sudden, to be happy here and now is the most important thing.
How
If
does
you are
one-
not happy here and now, how can you be happy there and later?
How does one become happy here and now? There are so many things around you that stress you out, whether it be your personal life or your professional life. Things have changed. There's a lot of effort going on. I mean, with the generations, the work that one has to do to achieve the same things that one did 20 years back is not the same. I mean, you have much more hours to give now. So how do you appease then the people? How do you tell them to be happy in the day and age?
We should not be fixed by time and space. Time, when people say they have no time, they have no interest. But if we have interest, there's so much time in 24 hours that you can do. And in that, if one is genuine to oneself, one can engage in what one wants to do and to achieve.
All right.
In any field, whether it's religious, cultural, technological, or in science.
When you meet people who are depressed, people who are not happy with life, what is the main cause of that unhappiness that you've found in all those countries that you've been to?
Sometimes these causes they call stress is quite artificial because they just use what they have heard from somebody, a particular word. But the problem remains that human beings suffer, but there is a way out. That is why suffering is true, because there is happiness. The very word suffering depends on happiness. And once you understand your suffering, you are on the path to achieve happiness. Happiness is not just once you are dead and gone, no. Here and now. By doing good, you get good. As you sow, so you reap. And you can get the results here and now.
But it's not always evident to achieve the results, even if you have worked in a certain aspect. You don't sometimes achieve the results there, here and now.
Yes.
How does one do that? I mean, how does one come to that understanding?
Yes, one comes to the understanding by using tolerance. Because there is no religion higher than tolerance. This is a quotation from the Theosophist Society.
All right. All right. Now, you're the CEO, sir, of the global Buddhist realists movement that is in Malaysia, in London, in Italy, Canada, US, and India as well. What is this movement all about?
This movement is all about meeting different people, to have an open dialogue, and to get involved in religion and society in a very pragmatic and practical way.
All right. During your visit to different countries, sir, the 66 countries that I've mentioned, you've presented papers on sociology, on history of Asia, on medical sciences, comparative religion, criminal science, Buddhist philosophy. I mean, there are so many variants that you know about. How does one combine all of that to bring about happiness in a personality?
When you know your total self, you become a fully happy person. When you know only a part of yourself, and when you're only partial and segregated, you know only one thing.
But how does one understand oneself completely? What is the process of understanding oneself completely?
First, the interest to know oneself genuinely. And then to follow the path. As you follow the path, you realize it. If you have genuine interest, you follow a moral code, because without all this education is meant to bring discipline. This is the success story of Singapore.
All right.
So with that discipline, you apply religion also for a discipline, to discipline yourself, to be tolerant, to be forgiving, to understand coexistence, to live in harmony, to share and to care. That's the first step.
All right.
Yes.
To live in harmony, to live in coexistence, these are words that are very nice to the ear. But in this day and age, the world is not living really in harmony or in coexistence, is it?
But even 60, 70 years ago, they used to say the same thing. These utterances will go on the same.
All right.
And the movement for peace, if you go around the globe, you'll be surprised There are a lot of people who have a lot of movements, who are trying to establish peace and more new friendship, active peace as such. Tremendous coming from different groups. Sometimes the groups are a bit extremist, but still they want to have peace.
Are these groups as successful as you feel they should be, or more needs to be done?
Maybe to some extent they are. At least people meet together, of all religions, of many races. We meet together, and sometimes we meet people which we can never meet in our life. It's very surprising, and very in remote places where we meet in thousands.
Sir, there's one thing that we see in this day and age, that is even in families in this day and age, people don't meet, especially in the West. In the East, the tradition of family is still there to some extent, but in the West, that has kind of waned with time. You see less and less of people from one family meeting. If people from one family don't meet, then how can people from different societies get together and to kind of look at the differences that they have and come over the conflicts that they have between them?
You see, in our calendars, it's like every month there are 2-3 conferences like this all over the world. There's been sure much more. They try to bring in those families together and to sit down, and they think about the extended larger family which they create. And when the people go back, they have some change in them.
All right.
It has a great impact they carry out with them after the meetings. It's not just meetings of sitting down, going in long flights and having a nice dinner and coming back.
There needs to be much more depth to it.
Yes, certainly. So that is also argued.
Hundreds of people get together, talk, but that talk, that the result of that, the essence of that needs to be transmitted
Certainly.
a bit more widely. Do you feel it is being done more widely?
Not much, and not what you call publicity is not given much to that, because today we live in a highly commercial world. Publicity is given for commercial products. Then people overconsume, and then you have another problem.
Isn't this whole in the media also this race for ratings,
Of course, they also
and this race for the sensationalism that goes on? To be at ease with oneself or with the others, this happiness, this nirvana that you talk about, that has nothing to do with the sensationalism, does it?
Yeah, but this is not enough, because the publicity has to go on and overcome that sensationalism by having professional ethics and moral ethics among journalists and social media people.
That is important, but do you see that happening?
So this is why certain countries have now restrictions in social media.
All right.
I think social media has done more damage than good. In my reading, it's like that.
Because I feel there's a lot of excess that we see in the social media nowadays, and also in media in general. A lot of people just think that if it's not sensational, it's not
It's
news.
not news, yes. Yes.
And that is totally contrary to what you're trying to portray. You got an honorary doctorate in humanities. How would you, in your point of view, define humanity?
Buddhism is humanism. I don't start from myself by saying I'm a Buddhist monk. I'm first and foremost a human being.
How does one become first and foremost a human being? You talk to any person on the street. Do you feel that the person realizes that he is a human being, or he has a certain value that he needs to cherish and transfer to others?
Yes, the second point is correct, yeah. And many people go on living ritually, like in religion, and just doing what others do, and they don't go deeper into to understand oneself.
That is important as well. Interfaith cooperation, interfaith harmony, that is something that the current government in Pakistan is also focusing on. That is something that you have focused on as well.
For 30 years.
For such a long time. When you talk to different communities, when you talk of interfaith cooperation and harmony, what is the basic question or reaction that comes from different communities?
The first thing I always emphasize is, let us talk about the periphery and not the core. When you go to the core, you have the theological problems which antagonize each and other religions. So the value system of morality and ethics that everyone knows, respect to the others and respect to others' belief, that basic things, the periphery should be clear, and if they can follow that, it's easier. But if you go to core issues and bring in doctrinal ideology, then you clash.
All right.
This is not only in interreligious, in intra-religious also. among different religious communities, you have intra-religious problems, like the Shia Sunni also. So these things have to be settled first.
And in all religions, we
Yes,
have you have
yes.
the in Christian
Yes,
in
yes,
Christianity,
yes.
in
Yes.
Christianity you have three of the Orthodox, you have
Yes,
the
yes, yes.
Protestants, you have the third, of course, as well. So every religion has different sub
Religions
yes,
or
exactly.
divisions, different divisions.
How does one overcome that? How does one come to a basic common point where one
The first
can work
thing,
together?
others who are in only one religion, reading only their religion, should read the religion of others. This is why I did Christian theology. To go deeper, though I have read the Bible 30 times before that, it doesn't mean that I have to be a Christian for that. You just read for the matter of reading and understanding. If you understand the religion of others, you understand your religion more. Because all religious teachers and prophets, the idea was to solve the human predicament of suffering and get to happiness.
This getting to happiness, I mean, that you've worked on for decades, is not an easy thing at all. With all the problems that plague the world, that plague different communities, that plague different religions, it's not easy for one to come to that level of happiness. You said you need to understand different religions as well to understand your own religion. I think that's a very important point that you have pointed out. But then there are different communities as well. Apart from religion, then there's different communal problems that people have. There are different sects, for example, even in India there are different sects,
Yes.
and each sect has its issues with the other sect, for example. How does one overcome that in your point of view?
If we can reduce our religious theologies and base on our human understanding of friendship, compassion, and alliance with everybody as human beings, we will be able to overcome that.
Does compassion exist in today's day and age?
You see, if we look at the news, it doesn't look like that. But if you go to the countries and meet the people and talk and see how they do, you will be surprised sometimes why some people spend so much money for that sake, to have more understanding and compassion and more wisdom.
Do you feel the people of the world, because you've been to around so many different countries around the world, different continents as well, is there an interest from people to understand themselves and to understand others? Is there that genuine interest?
Oh
available?
yes, there is. In many groups there are. It's not just is, it's there are.
All right.
So this is why we travel. We travel because we have a demand and they have a trust in us that we are able to give the message they need. So you may be surprised. The other day I came in, that was my 50th flight in 1.5 years.
165 flights in 1.5 years.
Because the demand is such. I had just come back from Vietnam after United Nations conference, and 2 days before that I was asked whether I could come for Vesak program here in Pakistan. And I knew that they need my help. So leaving all my comforts behind, not even resting for 1 day, I packed myself as I got back home to come to Pakistan. And that was a long journey because flights don't come directly to Pakistan. This is a problem for your tourism also next time.
Speaking of tourism, religious tourism is one thing
Yes.
that the current government is also emphasizing on. What, in your point of view, should the government do to improve on religious tourism?
There is tremendous resources here. The history, I'm specifically referring to the Buddhist history, that could draw in many visitors, but unfortunately, the publicity in the world is different. That they don't know that there are all these wonderful places, the beautiful places, not only in Gandhara, but beyond in Pakistan.
How does one publicize that? Because one goes to the West, there's a lot of negativity about Pakistan.
But you will be surprised, Germany, Holland, and in certain parts of America, 21 countries have the statues of Gandhara, and they emphasize and give a lot of news into that. One is Toronto, Canada also. Yes. So there is some knowledge about it. At least they take it as a beautiful piece of art. And Western artists and Western art, Impressionist art by Claude Monet and also by Vincent van Gogh, both of them were influenced by Buddhist art because they had Japanese artists' paintings, hundreds of them, both of them had. And these are all evidential proof.
All
Yeah,
right.
yes.
All right. So I think we need to kind of propagate more and more religious
Yes.
tourism. What the kind of places we have in Pakistan, because as you said and as we know as well, there are such a lot of interesting and beautiful places in Pakistan that need to be discovered by people around the world. And so you feel we need to be more aggressive maybe in our approach
Yes,
towards
because
tourism.
even in the Indian subcontinent, people are ignorant. They really don't know. They know only the Taxila Museum and the Gandhara Buddha statue.
All right. So we
That's
need
not enough. That's so much here.
All right. Speaking of yourself again, you've been entered into the United Kingdom's Who's Who as solo monk. You have also won the Chief Buddhist Monk of the UK and Europe in 2007, and Singapore, Malaysia in 2013 for all the services in humanity that you've given. What are the qualities that make you or any other person a good monk? What are the basic things that one looks at when we say, oh, you are a good monk or somebody else is one? What makes him somebody superior to the others?
Is that if you have genuine friendship for yourself and for others, as you love yourself, so you love even your enemies. You understand? Which is a difficult thing. And then you overcome the burden.
Sir, you've said that I want to show that monks simply just do not pray and sleep, but are conscious about human suffering and are determined to make right what is wrong. Do monks generally do that?
Yes. In our countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, monks are very active in society. They're all social movement leaders. So, a life of a monk is surrounded by his leadership of people.
All right.
They have leadership qualities because of the respect they command from the communities.
All
So
right.
they do a lot of work. Yeah.
You said once, and I quote, I became a monk because I was interested in kindness and friendship. Did you have that interest since you were a kid? Because of course you got that inclination to become a monk at a very early stage of your life.
The early stage of life didn't make me anything so different because age is only a number. If I have progressed, and if I knew the scriptures, and if I had prayed daily, morning and night, I understand the religion.
All right. And finally, sir, what is your definition of peace, understanding, and harmony amongst different societies? How would you define that? And how do you feel communities can work together to promote that?
First, to understand oneself and know one's position, and then to balance, harmonize oneself towards the greater goodness of everybody to understand others.
All right. So one basically needs to understand oneself, be happy yourself, and seek the qualities that you have, and then transcend to the others, and then transfer that kindness, that happiness to the others. Only then can you become happy. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a very interesting discussion that I've been having with Dr. Sumana. We've talked about so many things, and he's such a unique person by so many different standards that it would take more than a couple of hours to understand all the theology and all the philosophy that he's been working towards. I'll end with a little quote that he said himself. He said, life is not just about suffering. One needs to transcend suffering to attain happiness. Happiness is something that we need in this day and age in all societies, including in Pakistan. And for that, as Dr. Sumana has said, one needs to look onto oneself, into oneself, and attain happiness by oneself, and then only can you make others around you happy and make society and countries also interested in you and a happier place to live in. Khalid, but bids you farewell from this episode of Diplomatic Enclave. We'll be back inshallah next week, same time, same channel. Take care of yourselves, try to be happy if you can, and try to distribute that happiness amongst others. And Dr. Sumana, thank you very much.
Thank you, my pleasure.